Hey guys, so the agenda for today's session would be very simple. The agenda is to, so the agenda is very simple. The agenda is essentially to understand how we can use SQL, structured query language, on Google's BigQuery platform, which is a cloud platform, to analyze Google Play Store application download data, right? And we all use a lot of smartphone applications. So, how can we analyze various kind of applications which are available on Google Play Store? What does the data from Google Play, the real life data from Google Play Store tells us about different genre of application being downloaded? And we will use SQL to do that because the data is very large and the data is spread into multiple data sets and multiple tables. So, yeah, I'm going to assume that you know nothing about a structured query language. So that's going to be my basic assumption to begin with, okay? Because that makes everybody's life easier. Even if you know a little bit about SQL, it would still be okay to kind of revise a few things. And then, for the folks who do not know SQL much, it'll be extremely advantageous that way. So my name is Prateek Agrawal. I'm one of the co-founders of the IB Professional School, and I've spent around 18 years now in the industry, mainly as a data consultant, management consultant, technology consultant. What is SQL and why do we need to learn SQL, right? Yesterday, you guys had a great session, I think, with Ishani, and where you analyzed data using Power BI. Today, the focus would be on a different data set and on a different tool, which is SQL. So just to explain what SQL is, just like you and I, two human beings can talk to each other using a common language. Similarly, when you as a human being, or when a reporting tool like Excel, Power BI, Tableau, Python, R, SAS, when a human being or any of these reporting tools have to talk to the data repository where actually the data is stored, right? In the software application where the data is stored, when a human being or actual reporting tools, for example, Excel, Power BI that you saw yesterday as well, Tableau, Python, any of these reporting tools, right, that we know of, when they have to interact with the actual data source, imagine this cylinder represents something called as a database, which is nothing but a structured collection of data divided into multiple tables, as we all saw yesterday that you worked on tables. And I'm going to show you, how they look like as well in the database world. So whenever you want to interact with the database, which is the data repository, in order to get the data out or in order to send the data into the database, so whatever you have to do with the data repository, you do using SQL. So that SQL becomes that common language, as we spoke about here, between human beings who need access to the data in order to make decisions, or reporting tools which needs access to the data in order to create various different reports, which again, people can consume to make decisions. So any data access to the database repository or the data repository applications or softwares is done using a common language called as SQL. That basically means no company really owns SQL, okay? In late 1960s, early 1970s, a couple of IBM computer research scientists had created SQL out of frustration that a lot of business users used to ask them for data, and the data used to reside in some kind of a data repository, like a software application where the data used to reside. So they created this common language, very English friendly, which any English speaker, any English writer can understand and can use to get the data access directly from the database without having to interact with a computer scientist or a computer engineer in between. So SQL was designed inherently to be English friendly. And since it is so easy to learn, and since it is so commonly used across various database management softwares. Hence, it became extremely popular, right? Now, then the next question comes to your mind is, what is a database and what is a database management software, right? As we call them as DBMS, database management system or database management software. A database management system is a bunch of software which allows us to create a database which helps us to store the data in a structured format, right? The famous database management softwares in the world are, does anybody know which are the famous database management softwares in the world?
Oracle, SQL, MySQL.
Good. Oracle is the market leader. MySQL, which is again a database software by Oracle itself, that's for free. Then Microsoft has Access. Microsoft also has a very popular database called a SQL server, or SQL server. Then IBM has something called as DB2, right? Then there is another famous free open source database management system called as PostgreSQL. And similarly, there are quite a few of them, right? They are all database management systems. That means they are the software applications which allow you to create databases, right? And store data in tables in terms of rows and columns, as you saw yesterday, right? And all these database management systems, the common thing among them is that they all support SQL. So SQL is not a proprietary language by any one of these companies. Okay, SQL is that common language which a user or a reporting tool, as we discussed, can use in order to interact with any of these database management systems. And that is the reason why, as a data person, whether you are a data analyst, anybody who's working with the data repository or the data, they should know SQL in order to interact with the data repositories directly. And that is the reason why this is considered to be one of the top 3 skills in the world of data. It doesn't matter whether you're going towards engineering stack of data engineering stack or data science stack, it doesn't matter, right? SQL becomes the common language which all these database management systems understand, all the data analysts, data scientists, data engineers need to understand, and all the reporting tools need to understand. And that is the importance of learning SQL. Now, while learning SQL, you will have a question that a lot of things, a lot of these analysis, a lot of these data manipulation that we do with SQL can also be done with reporting tools like Excel or Python or SAS or R. Then why are we using SQL? One of the main reasons why we use SQL as an interface language is because SQL is very close to these database management softwares, and it's commonly understood. And it's easy, it's English friendly, as we said. Plus, SQL, since it works directly with the database management system, that means it understands the structure in which we store the data in a database. That means it can easily work with multiple tables. It becomes extremely difficult to work with multiple tables in reporting tools like Excel or even in Python kind of reporting tools. But here it is inherently available. So today also we will see that we will work with multiple tables very easily using SQL, right? And a lot of times what happens is, since these reporting tools that we talk about, the reporting tools like Power BI and Excel and all of that, since they are not the data repository tools, right? So they do not understand database structuring. For example, dividing the data into multiple tables, columns, and all of that, they don't understand very easily. And that is the reason why a lot of things, before we start analyzing the data visually in these reporting tools, we do that data cleaning, data manipulation, we do that using SQL. Okay, you might not know this, but Excel also supports SQL. So if you go to data, for example, although not today's session's focus, but if you go to data here, and if you go to get and transform data, and if you go to from database, so directly you can actually fetch the data using SQL from here. You can actually fetch the data. See, for example, I'm going to fetch some data from one of my databases which is hosted locally. I can also download, I can also connect to the database hosted on the cloud. So you can see I have a data source for AWS as well. It's right now off. So I'll connect to the local data. Right? And here, for example, we'll talk about this SQL query from student. Suppose I have written this simple SQL statement, which will fetch all the columns from this database and this table from this local connection. And I press OK. And you will see that it will try and connect to the database server directly, right? And it fetches the data, as you can see over here. And I can load it into Excel file. It says into a table in Excel in a new worksheet. And when I do that, you can see it has created another sheet here in Excel and it has loaded the data. So what I'm trying to say here is that even Excel supports SQL writing or SQL writing so that we can easily fetch the data from the databases as well. So that is the reason why. And similarly, Power BI supports this, Tableau supports this, Python supports it. All of these reporting tools would support writing SQL queries. And that's the reason why, again, as a data person, you cannot ignore SQL. Most of the data analyst interviews start with SQL, right? So it becomes one of those fundamental language for any data person to know. Now, having said that, having given you this premise, I am going to ask today for maybe 1 or 2 volunteers to participate with me, whereby I'm going to make you do a few things, right? And as I said earlier in the class, we will use a cloud-based SQL platform by Google, which is called as Google BigQuery. Google BigQuery. Now, I'm going to upload this note as well on Ivy's YouTube channel for you guys to, and plus we'll send it to you for the people who are attending. So we will actually learn, we will see today also that SQL is used for inserting, extracting, manipulating data from the database. It is a common tool. Why is it required? Because it's a common tool, common language to work with data stored in multiple databases. You're not bothered about which database software that ultimately is storing the data, because SQL is understood by all the database management softwares. As we discuss, all the folks who need to access the data to make decisions will use SQL. All the reporting tools will need SQL. Why is it famous? It is accepted universally by different database management softwares. It is easy to learn, especially for English users. No company really owns it, but there is an international body called as ANSI SQL, American National Standard Institution SQL, which controls SQL as a language, just like English is controlled by your Oxford Dictionary or Oxford in the UK. So no company really owns it, but this organization kind of decides the protocol, and all these database management software companies comply with SQL. SQL statements are commands are divided into multiple statement types. Today we'll not have time to go through all of them, but I can give you a few more video tutorials. You can go through them. Database definition language statement, with which we create databases, with which we create tables in the database. Database manipulation language statement, with which we insert data, delete data, update data, and database control language statement, with which we decide which user will have access to what kind of table within the database, how many people will have concurrent access, and so forth. This is done by the IT guys. So as a data analyst or a data scientist, you're not worried about DCL per se. You're more worried about learning DML. You're more worried about learning DDL. That means designing the database, creating tables, and manipulating the data. As an analyst, one of the things that you keep doing very often is to query the data, because you have to make decisions. So you have to query the data from the database. So you use most of the time database query language statement. So that is why it is called as a query, because 90% of our time that we use SQL for, we use SQL to query the data. Query meaning, for example, how many applications were downloaded in the last 1 month from Google Play Store? That is a business query. And you will get answer to this business query using this query or the command within SQL called as select statement. We'll spend quite a bit of time today learning about select statement. Yeah. Anyway, so let's get right onto it. As we said, I am going to not ask you to install anything today, right? I'm going to ask you to use Google's BigQuery platform, which allows us to create database for free, allows us to create tables in the database, allows us to write SQL statement as well for practice. It's a very good service. So for that, what I want everybody to do is go to Google and search, open your Chrome. If you have Chrome, perfect. Open your Chrome and type this query in Google, type Google BigQuery Sandbox. I put it into the chat window as well. Google BigQuery Sandbox. When you type it, you will get this link. Go to the first link. It says query a public data set with Google. Query a public data set with the Google Cloud Console. Scroll down. Here it says get started with the sandbox. Sandbox is a training environment. Since you want to learn, it's a learning environment, right? Of course, you don't want to experiment what you're learning in a production environment, like in the live environment. So of course, we want to work with a training environment, and Google provides that. So if you notice here, get started with sandbox, and then here there is something called as go to BigQuery. When you click on it, it will open something like this. SQL workspace, and it'll give you a prompt like this: Google Cloud Platform, welcome Prateek Agrawal. Now, how did it understand that I'm Prateek Agrawal? Well, since it's a Google service, it's a Google Cloud service, hence, since I'm logged in with my Gmail here, so it automatically picked up my name from my Gmail. So the only thing that you need in order to access Google Cloud Platform or Google BigQuery is your Gmail access, right? I'm going to wait for a minute. Exactly. If you can, let me know if you're facing any problem. When you Google for Google BigQuery Sandbox, you will get the first link, which will say query a public data set with the Google Cloud Console. Go there and scroll down where it says get started with the sandbox, and there is something called as go to BigQuery. And when you click on it, it will open a window like this. Okay, if you're not logged into Gmail, this is when it'll give you a prompt to sign into Gmail. Please do that, and once you've done that, then you'll get a prompt. Can anybody confirm that they are able to get to this point? You can also ask me if you're facing any problem getting to this point. Anybody at all? Anybody? Done. Abhishek is done. Great. Amit is done. All right. I'll wait for 30 more seconds. Rohan is done. All right. Rahul is done.
Sir, whatever we will be doing in this can be done in MySQL Management Studio as well.
SQL Server Management Studio.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, SQL Server Management Studio.
Okay. The only thing is, there the database could be a little different, Abhishek. Okay. Yeah, but conceptually, the task that we will perform today, I will write down as well, can be done in any database management system. Doesn't matter which one you are working with. Okay. So the task that we will perform right now, these are the tasks that we'll perform. We'll create a database, right? We'll create a couple of tables, or in other words, we will import a couple of tables of data, right? Remember that the case that we are working, the data set that we are working with, the live data, the real life data set that we are working with is Google Playstore application download data. Okay, so when we will import the couple of tables of data, those are the tables which have data about Playstore will be imported. The tables that we will import is one table is called as the description of the apps. The second table is the financial information about those apps, like the money, the number of downloads, installs, and so forth, the ratings, reviews, and all of that. Then we will use SQL to answer business questions. Okay, because that's what you do as an analyst. That's what you do as a data scientist. You answer business questions, right? So you'll use SQL to answer business questions, right? So these are the things that we will do, right? So use SQL to query data. Let me describe it. Query data from the database to answer business questions. The idea is to be able to answer business questions. Whatever we do should ideally result into some business value. So that's what we would do. All right, good then. I see a lot of done, guys. Thank you, everybody who is able to do it. And if you're not able to do it, do let me know, guys. I can help you. Otherwise, you can also watch the recording. Now, when you get to this point, welcome. Just the country, India, and whatever country that you want to select. Agree here. You have to agree the terms. Yeah, and then you will get something like this. Start your free trial with $300 credit. Do not worry about it. Just click dismiss, and then you will see something like this. Google Cloud Platform. Select a project, and let me just. Yeah. Now here it says create project. If you notice where my cursor is, it says create project. Just to give you a little bit of idea about how Google Cloud Platform structures itself is like this. The first thing it does is that it has something called as a project. So it's like a folder, master folder. You can see, you can imagine this as to be a master folder. Under project, you can create multiple databases. Google Cloud Platform calls databases as data sets. So databases or data sets are the same thing. I will write baby in the bracket. And you can create multiple data sets. Okay, multiple data sets. And under data sets, each one of them, you can create multiple tables. Multiple tables. That's where you would have the rows and columns, and that's where the data will go. And that's what we will query. Okay. So I'm going to click on create project. Now, since it's a free sandbox training environment provided by Google, Google is taking care of the space, processing, and all of it. So it gives us certain number of projects. So it says, well, I have got 22 projects, right? Earlier, up until like last week, they used to give 12 projects. Now they've started giving 22 projects. So, well, 22 projects remaining in your quota. Great. Now, my project name, I will give it a unique name, but remember this project name has to be globally unique, right? Since we're working with Google Play Store, I'm going to write Google Play Store 2. Abhishek, yeah, I mean, yeah. So since I work so closely with the Google Cloud Platform, I've been promoting it for free for Google. So that is why they have been a little lenient with me. To be very frank, I had actually also requested them to increase it, and they increase it. You can actually request them to increase it. They are pretty generous about it. In a way, you're popularizing their service, right, by using it. So that is why Google Play Store -2 I've written, but it has to be unique and it can't take any underscore. And remember, it cannot be changed later, as it says, cannot be changed later. Do not worry about selecting any organization. If you were actually working with an organization, you would have been given a Google ID by that organization, then you would have selected the organization. Here, this is my personal account, so I'm not going to select any organization, and I'm going to click on create. So what I've done here is that I have created my first project. But remember, within the project, I need to create data sets. And under the data set is where I will import the table. Well, okay, it just takes a little bit of time to refresh. Okay, guys, just be a little patient about it. Now it says, welcome to Google BigQuery in the Cloud Console. Looking for saved queries. Don't worry about that. Now, welcome to Google BigQuery, new to BigQuery, this and this, click on done. Perfect. Now, if you notice here, we have this create project, Google Play Store, select project. Let me clear this thing. Select the project that we just created. All right, so let's select that project. Now, has selected that project. Okay. Let me discuss this. Give me a second. I'll just star mark it. This is the project that we have selected. For some odd reason, this is not the name that we had given, but this is the name it is taking. For some odd reason, okay? Very, very surprising. Well, okay, it has taken this ID. So just be careful while creating the new project. Let me create another project. Okay, let's see why it is taking that old ID. Now it says, so this is the project ID, this is the project name. Okay, I should have. So this is a new thing that they have done. I'm going to edit the project ID and I'm going to make it as Google Play Store. Remember, it has to be unique. From this time, I'm going to make it as -3. And the project name, Google Play Store. Okay, this says it's not available. So let me put like a Google PS 1. Let's see if it is available. No, it's not available. 1, 2, 3, 4 should be available. Not available. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is also not available. Let me put and this is normally that's not so difficult, guys. This is Argon Works, Google. Let me remove that Google keyword. Play Store. I think this is available. So don't use the Google keyword. You know, that is the one. That is why it was getting flagged off. So click on create. Now, if you notice, this is the project that got created, and I'm going to use that project. Now, if you notice here, we got these two projects, right? And I am going to go to this particular project, click on it, Google Play Store, and then now again this comes over here, set up billing upgrade. Click on dismiss. Now here we got a couple of projects here, but the one that we want to use is this one, Playstore 345114 mine one. Okay, you have to give it different name. Now here, if you look at the drop down, there is a drop down here, right? But if you click on the drop down, nothing comes. Remember, what we have done so far is a very simple thing that we have done, although it took us some time. We have just created a project. Now within the project, what do we have to create, guys? We have to create a data set, and within that we will create tables. Okay, so come back over here. Now there are 3 dots here, 3 dots. When I click on 3 dots, it says create the data set. So when I click on the create data set, it's with the project ID, confirm, give a data set ID, letter, numbers, and underscores are allowed, no spaces allowed. So let's call it as Google Play Store, like this, Google Play Store. Data location can be anywhere, actually where the data is getting stored, in one of the data centers in the US somewhere. We don't really care. And do not worry about the rest of the things, just click on create data set. So project ID, confirm the same project ID where you want to create, otherwise you can change it also. Give a data set ID without any space, right? Give a logical thing and click and select the data location. Select the first one, which is multiple regions. We don't really care about where exactly, and click on create data sets. When you do that, it says it got created, and you can see now, if you look at the drop down for Playstore this, there is a data set. Now, what is the next thing that we should do, guys? Anybody? What is the next thing that we should do? Any idea? Anybody?
Could you please tell the dataset ID part once again?
Yeah, sure. Dataset ID, you can give anything.
Okay.
Anything that makes logical sense. Since we're working with we're going to analyze Play Store data, so hence I've given it as Google Play Store. See, I'm going to click one more time here. In the dataset ID, you can give any logical name, of course, without any space, can take underscore, can take numbers, data location US, click on create data set. Now, the next thing, Shreyas, you're right. The next thing that we want to do is that we want to create the tables. Okay, Chetan. Okay. So Chetan, what we have done so far is not much, to be very frank. And Chetan, don't worry. I mean, I'll spend some time extra at the end and try to follow what you can. And then towards the end, I will spend some time with you. Don't worry. What we have done so far is that we've gone to Google BigQuery. We Googled for Google BigQuery Sandbox. The first link we got, we went there. We went to Google BigQuery, and we are here in Google Cloud Platform, Google BigQuery platform, and then we are going to perform these tasks that we wrote here, which is create a database, import a couple of tables of data, and then we will use the SQL to query data from the database to answer business questions. Okay. So now here we have created a project. We have created a data set, which is nothing but a database, right? Google Cloud Platform likes to call database as data set. And the next thing that we want to do is, because if I click on this drop down, there are no tables here. So the next thing that we want to do is, as Shreyas said, that we want to create tables. So if I click on these three dots, there is something called as create table. And when I go to create table, you will see something like this. Okay, where it says what is the source, what is the destination, and what is the table type. Now, as we said in the task that we want to perform, we do not want to create empty tables. We want to import tables of data already available to me, and I'm going to give you that link as well. What I have done is I'm giving a link in the chat window. This is a Google Drive link, and when you open that link, you will get to this point. You will get to this Google Drive point, whereby we have got description as one of the tables of data that we want to import, and we got finance. Let me open these two files. Let me open these two CSV files into Excel. So I've already opened it to save some time. So this is the description file. As you can see it. This is the description file. Again, this is the real life data from Google Play Store. And if you look at the columns, we got ID, which is the ID of the app. This is the name of the app. This is the category, which is same as genre. For example, this particular app, photo editor, candy, camera, grid, scrapbook. It's one of the apps. The genre is art and design. The content rating is for everyone. It's not an adult app or teen app or something like that. And the Android version it supports is from 4.0.3 and up, right? The rating is this much. The last update on this app was done on this date, right? Similarly, we got thousands, tens of thousands of apps in this data. So that's the description table. So the main thing that is there here is the ID, the app, the genre, the rating of the app, the content rating, the Android version it supports, right? And the last update. Now, what is there in the next table, which is finance table? So if you look at the finance table, what do we have? We've got ID, which is again ID of the app. We got the number of reviews the app has received. We got the size of the app in KBs. We got number of installation that the application has had so far. We got whether the app is free or not. Of course, if it's free, then there'll not be any price. But if I scroll down, you can see some of the apps had some money, right? $4.99 and so forth, right? The money that is given is in dollars. Got it? Now, what are the columns which are there in this finance table, which are not there in the description table? Anybody? What are the columns which are there in the finance table, which are not there in the description table, right? The common column we know is this one, the ID. If you notice, the common column between the two tables is ID. So Shreya says one is price, which is there in the finance table, which was not there in the description table. Second is the type. Third is the install.
Review and size.
The review and size, right? And Prasad, we are very clear that what is the common column between the two tables?
ID.
The ID is the common column, right? Now, if I go to the description table, it also has a few things which was not there in the finance table, which is content rating, which is the suitability of the content, not the rating given by the users, that's review and that's rating, but that. And then genre and Android version it supports, and the update date and the rating. Do you understand? So both the tables have some, and also, of course, the name of the app. The name of the app is not there in the finance table. A lot of things, a lot of information that we may require as an analyst, as a business user, are scattered between multiple tables. And you know why the data is stored in multiple tables is to efficiently store them without any redundancy, right? So there is a whole concept in database designing, which is called as database normalization. The aim of that concept is to reduce redundancy by splitting the data into multiple tables and then relating them through common columns. Here we have related the two tables through ID, right? So these are the two tables that we will import into Google BigQuery, right? And the link to that data set, which contains both the tables, is given over here, the Google Drive link, which I have given in the chat window. If you missed it, I'm going to give to you in the chat window again. Okay. Now let's go to Google Cloud BigQuery platform, where we had clicked on create table. Remember, how did we get here? We clicked on these three dots. So under this project, under this data set, we want to create tables. So we clicked on these three dots and we clicked on create table. It gave us this, and then we said the source, create table from, there is a drop down here. I will say upload. So you can see, you can actually create the table as an empty table. Then you'll have to insert the data individually, but we don't want to do that. So we'll click on upload. And when I click on upload, then it says, all right, where is the file? Where is the file that you want to upload? The CSV file, which is a common industry format, not an Excel file. Remember, it's a comma separated values file, which is much lighter than Excel and can be understood, can be read by any databases, can be read by any reporting tools as well. When I browse for it, then it's already there in my downloads section. So I'll select the description file first, open. Then it says the file format, it automatically understands the CSV file format. The destination is that project that we just created, and that's data set that we just created. And the table name, let's give it a table name. Let's give the name of this file as description, right? Small case. It's case sensitive as description, native table, let that be. And schema, select auto detect. Now what it does is that this particular small option has a very large implication. What it does is that if you notice the description file, you got multiple columns of data, and each column of data contains different type of data. For example, ID column contains numeric data, whereas the app column contains text data. Category also contains text data. Content rating also contains text. Genre contains text. Android and Android version also contains text. Alphanumeric is also always text. Rating, on the other hand, contains numeric data. Last update date contains date data type. So different columns contain different type of data. When you do this, when you select this option where it says schema auto detect, that means that the type of data that each column contains would be automatically understood by Google Cloud, Google BigQuery platform. And we don't have to manually say that, hey, ID is integer, application name is text, last update date is date. We don't have to do all that. This auto detect will automatically read the data and assign the data type to each individual column accordingly. It is a big thing that it does for us. And that's probably one of the very, very important reasons why Google BigQuery is getting so popular. And then just click on create table. That's it. So we selected the upload option here in create table from, selected the table, I selected the file, CSV file that we wanted to upload, give it a name, a meaningful name without any space, case sensitive, and then auto detect schema, and then click on create table. When I click on create table, what it does now is that now we've got project data set and it has created the table here. Similarly, I'm going to create one more table. Create table, upload, browse for the file. This time, the file that I'm uploading is the next file, which is the finance file that we had. I don't know where it went. Yeah, this is the one. And I click on open CSV file, understands it. The same project, same data set, and the name this time I'll write it as finance, right? And then auto detect the schema to select, to automatically detect the data type of each column that you want to import, and then click on create table. And it says load job created, and it's done. And you can see now this project has this data set and it has two tables already here. Now the question is, how do we see what we have imported has been properly imported or not, and how do we start writing our business SQL queries, which will help us solve business questions? So if I click on these three dots here against this table, there is something called as query, right? Or I can click on open as well. Let's say I click on open. What does it do? So there's a tab which gets opened here. It gives you the schema first. Schema is what are the fields, what are the data type. So ID is integer, app is string, content rating string, and so the string is text, alphanumeric. Rating is float is also one of the numeric data type which can contain decimal portion. Last updated is date. So very nicely it has taken it. You can edit the schema here if you want, but we don't want to. And then if you preview here, you can see these are the fields that we just uploaded, we just imported, right? Now, I want to write queries on this table. So again, I can click on these three dots and I can go to query. It will open another tab. See here, it opens another tab. Now, access SQL translation, translated, and so on and so forth. We will skip all these things for now, skip all these things. Now, the basic construct of querying the data using SQL, the basic construct meaning basic command of querying the data from a database using SQL is select statement. So that is the command that we can see here. I'm just going to zoom a little bit, Control+. So you can see select. Select means read the data. Okay, we were extracting the data. Select does not modify, no content will be modified, no data can be modified using select statement within the data. So the basic construct of select statement is this: select from, where, and a lot of other things. And remember, all SQL statements should ideally end with a semicolon. This semicolon here means end of SQL statement. So we want to select the data, read the data from which project dot which data set dot which table. So if you notice, it is like folder path, right? Like in computer, you have Computer Explorer window, you have folder paths, right? Folder 1, folder 2, and then file, right? You have like, similarly here, instead of folder path, we have project dot database or data set dot table, right? And put under pair of ticks these single things that you see at the end. You see here at the end, and here also it is ending. So it's starting and ending with pair of ticks. Now what are ticks? Ticks are symbols before number 1 in your keyboard, just below escape. So if you focus on your keyboard, you will find that there is a tilde kind of sign, like a sine wave. That is a tick. It's not a single quote, guys. Okay. So the entire folder path, or in this case, the project datasets and table part has to be put under the tick, under pair of ticks. Okay. Where, imagine in the description file, if I go to here, if I see, I want to find out how many, I want to find out, or maybe not how many, I want to find out the list of those applications which are from this genre, art and design, which are from art and design, and which have a rating of more than 4.5. Art and design genre and rating of more than 4.5. I want to see their names. So I would write from that where art, sorry, where genres is equals to under pair of double quotes, because it's a text value, it's a string value, art and design. And then simply I will write and rating. Let's see if it is called rating or rating. Yeah, rating is greater than 4.5. Now, why have I not written 4.5 under pair of double quotes? Because it is not a text value, it is a numeric value, it's not a string value. Where this now, after select, it's showing red, these curly things. That means there is something wrong before from. What is wrong before from is that which columns do you want to read from this description table? Which all columns? As I said, I want to see the name of the app. So I'll write app, comma. Maybe I want to see the genres as well here, comma. I want to see the rating. These are the 3 columns that we want to extract from this table, which meet these conditions, these 2 conditions, and limit 1000. I am going to remove this for now. And then I'm going to write semicolon. Yeah.
Sir, in this 4.5, can I use greater than or equal to?
Yes, you can. Greater than equals to, let's say. No problem.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now, in order to run this query, I select it. So I've selected this query. It says the query will process this much KB of data. Very nice, very nice, very nice. And then I click on run. And when I click on run, it runs it. It gives you the result, and I'm going to drag it a little bit up. And these are the results. You can see these are the results. App, which is the column that we selected, the genre, and the rate. And you can see it has given us 26 rows. So there are 26 apps from genre, art and design, which have a rating of more than 4.5. You can see all these apps have more than 4.5 rating. Right? Now, I'm just going to scroll it down a little bit. And by the way, this result that we got, you can also save this result. Let's say you want to visualize this report in Excel or in Power BI or in Python. You can actually save the result. Look at this. As a CSV local file. You can save it in multiple types, but you can save the result as a CSV local file. And see, it has downloaded this result in CSV, which opens up in Excel. This is the data that we just got, right? Now you can use this data and create whatever visualization that you want to create. SQL is not good for visualizing the data. It's good for manipulating, extracting the data directly from multiple tables, directly from the database, but not for visualizing the data. For visualization and for predictive modeling or writing machine learning algorithms, there is Python, there is Power BI, this Tableau, this Excel. Okay. Now, this is our first business question that we answered using SQL as a query. A few things that we learned, that the basic query that we write or the basic data reading that we do is using select statement. A few things in this case, guys. Suppose if I select this, come over here, and suppose I wanted to extract all the columns, read all the columns which met all these conditions from this description table, then I would have written very simply, select asterisk. Instead of writing these column names individually and separating them with a comma here, I would have written just select asterisk or star. And when I run it, I can get, this time, I will get all the columns from the table which meet the condition. So you can see it gives you again the 26 columns, but 26 rows, but it gives you all the columns of data. You can see it's not restricting to only 3 columns that we had earlier seen, which is the app name, the genre, and the rating. This time it gives you everything. And again, you can save the result in CSV format and do further analysis. Let's I know we have gone past the time, but guys, please stick with me as we had a little bit of technical flaw in the beginning. Now let's take our discussion a little bit further, right? Let's try to summarize the data. I'm going to put some comment. This is a comment. This is non-SQL statement. When you put anything under pair of / asterisk, and when you end it with asterisk / it is considered to be comment in SQL. Let me write it here that let's summarize the data from the description table, right? Summarize meaning how many rows do we have? How many apps data do we have? That is one summary question that we have. The second question could be that how many apps are there from different genre, right? Then what is the average rating across all the apps, right? And I'm focusing only on the description table for now. So let's say these are the 3 things. You can summarize and do a lot of other things. Well, Abhishek, it depends upon which client that you're working with. In Google BigQuery client, which is based on MySQL database, MySQL Workbench, it is designed primarily using MySQL Workbench as the base. MySQL Workbench, the comment is written like this. I get point, Abhishek. So let's look at this first question that we had. Then we will go to the questions. So the first question is, how many apps do we have in the description table? So let's see, select from, again, I have to write this entire thing. So, it's not so difficult. Of course, you can copy paste it here, or you can also bring this. Okay, all right. Let me write description. Write it slowly. Okay, yeah. When you write it slowly, it captures the name, and when it captures the name like this, and when you select it, it will select everything. You don't have to manually write it. Did you understand this? I'll show you again. This is the trick of Google BigQuery. Write it slowly. Give it some time to pick up. Wait for a few seconds. See it picks up, and then select it. You don't have to that way write the project name, dot the dataset name, dot the table name, right? Where, so not where this time, how many apps do we have? So there is no where condition. Close with a semicolon. Go to select statement again, and this time I'm going to use a function, just like Excel, Power BI, Python has functions. SQL also has a lot of inbuilt functions. So one of the functions that we will use is count. And what column on which we will apply the count to? Let's say I apply the count to the ID column. Remember, there is an ID column. So I'll apply the column count function to the ID column. Now, if I do so, select it, run it, and it is running it, and it has given me the output. It says row 7,873, which means there are 7,873 apps data available in the description table. Got it, guys? But here, look at the column header. It says F0 underscore or something like that, non-relevant column header. And the reason for that irrelevant column header is because, of course, count ID is something that we're deriving it. We're calculating it in SQL right now. So, of course, it doesn't have any table. It doesn't have any column name available in the table. So we will just simply write, we'll create a column alias. It's called as a short, you can define a label name to this derived column. So as, let's say, total apps. Now, if I run the statement again, by the way, shortcut to run after selecting, if you don't want to select this, is Control Enter. But yes, control enter after selecting the statement that you want to run. And you can see it says 7,873. Is it making sense, everybody? Under total apps. So what did we do with an as? We created an alias name or a common name. But again, the select statement only reads the data. It doesn't modify the data table. The data table is still the same. If I go to this tab where we could see the schema, it is still there is. It's not as if it has created another column here. There's no other column that got created. Correct? Now, let's see a few more things. Question: how many apps are there for different genre? So that means the output that I'm looking for, if I were to draw, is the output that I'm looking for is, and it's a great practice to do this, that you have an ideal output drawn. What I want is genre here, and then I want some kind of a count here. So let's say art and design, whatever. Let's say entertainment, whatever number. Let's say games, whatever number, and so on and so forth. That is the kind of table that I'm looking for, right? So of course I want, for the second question, how many apps are there from different genres? I want select from, again the same thing, description table. Wait, press tab, or you can select it with the mouse. And here there is a concept in SQL which will help us aggregate the data or group the data. We want to group the data by what column here, guys? What have we done here, guys? What have we done? We have grouped all the apps based on what? We have grouped the apps based on what, guys? What do you guys think? We have grouped the app based on what?
Genres.
We have grouped the app based on genre, guys. Perfect. Perfect answer. So Prasad says that we group the app by genre. So I'll come here and I'll write something called as group by. Very simple thing, group by. See, look at how English friendly it is. Group by genres, semicolon. And then I come back into select statement, genres, because that's the first column that I want to display. Genres, comma, what do I want to display for each column, each genre? As you can see, we want to display the count. And for count, we have seen that there's a function called as count. So write count again on the ID column as, just to give a label to the output, as total apps. And then I select this, control enter, or you can click on this run button. And you can see it is executing. It has executed, gives you the result. And if you notice the result, it's pretty interesting. If you notice this board game, tools, 634 apps, action, arcade, casual, events, and so on and so forth. Now, if you notice, won't you want to see this sorted maybe by total number of apps in descending order, decreasing order by the total number of apps? That means you want to see which genre is which has the highest number of apps in Google Play Store first, and then second, third, and so forth. Basically, we want to sort the data, or we want to order the data by what, guys? We want to order the output of this query by what? Anybody? We want to order the data by, or sort the data by, this count ID column. So there is another clause here called as order by or sort by, but you have to write order by. You can't write sort by. Order by what? Order by count of ID. Count of ID. In which order? Space DESC, in descending order. Group by genres, order by count of ID in descending, decreasing order. And when I do so, so you can see tools like calculator and retirement calculator, so such tools, 634, education, 498, entertainment, 485, action, 344 medical, 323, and so on and so forth. Let's say you want to see the top 5. This shows you all 48 categories, genres essentially. If you want to see only the top 5, remember limit that we saw earlier? So you can say limit 5. That means out of this query, once this query is run, whatever number of rows that we see, we will only see the first 5 rows. When we ran this query without limit, we got 48 rows. But now what we are doing here is we have modified the query a little bit, made it a little more interesting. We are saying show the top 5 genres of apps in terms of, or top 5 genres in terms of number of apps. In Google Play Store. You understand? Let's see how crafty we have become. So if I run this statement, it is executing it. And now it only shows us top 5 apps. And you can save this result in a CSV file. You can open it in Excel and it will open the file like this. You understand? Genres, total apps, right? Now let's look at the third question. It says, what is the average rating across all the apps? Average rating across all the apps. So select from, again, description, wait for it, as tab, all the apps, no categorization, no where condition. So here, instead of count function, this time I will use AVG function, which helps us to find average of rating. So average function will be applied to the rating column as average rating. And then I select this and I run it. Scroll it up. It's executing it. Comes to the result. The average rating is 4.17. Look at this query, simple query. And the best part is, once you've written these queries, for the next set of data, you just have to change the column names and the data set names. That's about it. You don't have to rewrite these queries again and again. So all the data analysts, all the data scientists have their bunch of SQL queries that they have written, and they keep trying to repeat them. So far, what we have done in SQL is that, guys, we have analyzed some data, we have answered some business questions, but we have answered the business questions only from a single table. If you remember, one of the main applications of SQL or learning SQL is to be able to work with multiple tables within the database. So how do we work with multiple tables within the database? Remember, here in our data set or our database, we got 2 tables, but you could have had 200 tables. Doesn't matter. We got finance table and we got description table, and the common column between them is ID. So using the ID, you can actually join these 2 tables. Using the common column ID between the description table and the finance table, you can join them so that you can answer business questions which may require data from multiple tables. For example, let's go here. We have seen description table quite enough. Let's go to the finance table. If you notice, we've got number of installations, number of installs. We got reviews, which are different from ratings, number of reviews. But the very, very important thing is installs and whether it is free or not free. For example, let's say you have a question, you have a business question to answer. Multiple tables, finance and description tables. So what are the business questions that we may have? Let's say the question that we have is First question is here, or maybe let's put it as 4. Now the question that we have here is that how many free apps are there in the education genre? How many free apps are there in the education genre? Now, if you notice here, the genre information is given in which table? Genre information is given in the description table here. See, the genre information is there in the description table. You can see it is there in the description table, education. Whereas the installation information, or sorry, free apps, right? The type information, whether it is free or paid, is there in the finance table. That means we need some column from finance table and we need some column from the description table. This is the classic use of joining the two tables, or writing SQL query where we are fetching the data, where we are reading the data, extracting the data from more than one table. And that is where the concept of joins come into the picture. Joins is really nothing, but you get the data between the two tables using common column. For example, this is description table, this Venn diagram, if you remember from school days, and this is a Venn diagram represents finance table. And we know that there are common rows between them through common column ID, right? So what we are trying to find out is, so how do we work with multiple tables? So as we said, this is when we use joins, right, in SQL. So we write select, and instead of from only one table, this time we will join the two tables. And since we want the common rows between the two tables, so we'll do something called as inner join. Inner join essentially helps you find the common rows. This is called as inner join or intersection join. Helps you find the common rows between the tables. So if I write from description tab inner join, which table, guys? We are going to inner join this table with which other table?
Finance.
So write finance, wait for it, tab. But we are inner joining these two tables using which column? Using ID under bracket. You have to write it under bracket. Using ID column. All right. Now, I'm just going to do one small thing here, guys. I'm going to give a table alias to each one of them. Let's say I'm going to call it as D, and I'm going to call this as F. And I'm going to tell you, why I have given table aliases, table names. So we are joining these two tables using ID, right? And we will say how many free apps are there in the education genre. So we'll write education genre. So let's say we have to write where genres is equals to education and type is equals to free. Type is a column from the finance table. Look at the type column. And genre is a column from the description table. Very easily we can work with them now. And then how many free apps? So I'll write count of the ID, but ID is there in both the tables. So I have to mention, let's say d.id. D meaning description.id, because we have equated them using ID. So it doesn't matter from which table you selected. So I run this statement. And it says there are 458 such apps in the education category which are for free. Okay. Now let me run this statement with slightly modified command. So description as B, inner join, finance as F, on, instead of using I'm using on d.id. It's like description.id is equals to f.id. So that's how we are saying we are joining these two tables by equating on the basis of these two equal columns, common columns. Then where joiners is equals to education and type is equals to free. And here the same, even if you do f.id is going to give you the same total apps. So when I run this statement, I get the result, little better result. Got it? So as you notice here, what we have done is we got the data from multiple tables together, right? Let's do a few more questions from just a couple of more questions from these two tables. Let's say I want to find out that do we have, suppose one of the main questions that is going on in my mind as a business user is that does having more rating results into more installation? Does having more rating results into more installation? Meaning, or maybe let me simplify this question a little bit for now. Which genre has the highest? Which genre has the highest number of installs? Right now, genre information is again going to come from description table, and number of information is going to come from the finance table. So again, we'll have to join the two tables since we need the data from multiple tables. So this time, just to save some typing effort, I will copy this query, come over here. This will join the two tables, the same logic. And the genre, I would not write any where condition in this case, since I want the data output to have the genre information and against genre the number of installs. So I will group the data again, group by genres, like how we did in one of the earlier queries, genre. Then I will write genres here and comma count of not ID, but and not count of ID, but this time I will use sum of installs as total installation. Sum, instead of count, I'm using sum function this time. Sum is same as what we see in Excel. And when I run this statement, it gives me, or it will give me genre-wise number of installation, total number of installation. You can see genre-wise total number of installation, which is of course a ridiculously large numbers. A lot of people download a lot of apps. But what is missing? See, it says which genre has the highest number of installation. So what is missing here, guys? What should we do? What is missing? What is missing, guys? So one of the things that is missing here is to sort the data by sum of installation.
Highest to lowest, sir.
DSC in descending order. That's right. Thank you, Shrita. Thank you, Mangesh.
Okay.
And if you notice here, if I run the statement, let's scroll this up. It is executing it. and it shows me the results. You can see the arcade, the gaming, the arcade casual apps have the most installations. Does make sense, everybody? So you can see that's the highest. And if you just want to see arcade, which is the highest, because the original question was which genre has the highest number of installs. So you can actually limit it by this. And that gives you the total number of installation, guys. Is it making sense, everybody?
Yes, sir. It is making sense only. Correct.
Yeah. So, guys, of course, SQL is a vast ocean. I don't expect you to become an expert in 1 hour of session. However, what I wanted to give you today was a very decent flavor of what do we do with SQL and why do we need it. And with all these modern cloud-based tools, you don't really have to install anything at all. As long as you have access to large data, you can easily, without even having a powerful machine locally. To be very frank, even if you have even if you had a tablet with a keyboard, you can literally do it on your phone as well, but of course, it's not recommended. But if you had a tablet with a little bit of screen, you could have run these advanced level of query on large data sets without even installing anything with the help of Google BigQuery kind of a platform, guys. So guys, again, my name is Prateek Agrawal. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions personally one by one as well. I'm going to give you guys my LinkedIn profile. So if you just Google Prateek IV, you'll find my profile as the first profile here. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn and on Twitter. So you'll find me over here as well on Twitter. So these are 2 platforms that I remain active at. I'll be more than happy to get connected with you guys, right? Feel free to get connected. And also I'm going to give you my email ID, guys. Feel free to reach out to me, prateek@ivproschool.com. Okay, I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Now, if you have any questions, please remain here. I'm going to be here for the next 5-10 minutes and I'll answer any of your questions. Abhishek says, can you scroll rightwards? Definitely I can scroll rightwards. And remember, guys, before we finish, tomorrow you have an exciting session where you will actually work on Python machine learning concept. And also, if you check out the chat window, there are exciting offers, things which you can explore in that link which is given if you're interested to learn more. And remember, there is I will upload these SQL queries that we wrote today on Ivy's YouTube channel. So if you notice on Ivy's YouTube, there is a channel that Ivy maintains, youtube.com/IvyProSchool. So I'm going to upload the scripts there, right next to the video. And if you visit that tomorrow, you will actually have it, right? And also, I will have it emailed to all the people who attended today's session. All right, guys, I'm here. Just to recap what we did today, first we learned what SQL is used for. So we had a quick introduction on SQL. We understood that SQL is that common language which connects end users, like end user data, end data users to databases. Reporting tools also supported Python, Excel, Power BI, Tableau. All of them supports using SQL. SQL is supported commonly by different database management system from different companies. One of the beauty of learning SQL is that it's English friendly, supported by all the databases. And then we did these tasks today. We worked on Google Play. We tried to analyze Google Playstore application download data. We created a database in Google BigQuery. We imported a couple of tables in Google BigQuery, description and finance tables. And then we used SQL query to analyze the data. Shubham's question is, Python or R, which one is more used for data visualization? Well, both are pretty all right. Python also has ggplot to set of libraries, but R also has it, but Python also has very good set of libraries available for visualization. But if you were to ask me, would anybody use only Python for visualization? I would say people would then prefer a simpler tool like Power BI and Tableau or a Click to do, if visualization is the ultimate goal. But if it is machine learning algorithms, if it is predictive modeling, statistical algorithm analysis of the data, then you would also actually think of Python or R. Sure, I will provide you my LinkedIn ID here. Well, Shubham, if you were to ask me, if you have absolutely no understanding of Python or R, and remember again, as I said, if it is data visualization is your goal, then you can literally choose any. But I would strongly advise you to become very, very good in Power BI or Tableau. I would prefer Power BI because the demand is more. Yeah, Power BI becomes important, and then you can actually focus on Python. Rohan, I will share the syntax. I will put the syntax in the description of the YouTube video tomorrow. I will have it there. Because I don't think I can paste it over here. And for data extraction, SQL, Shubham, for data manipulation, extraction, cleaning the data, SQL. Guys, do not miss tomorrow's session. Okay, tomorrow's session is going to be an exciting one, and that's when you will actually get the certificate as well. Thank you for attending today's session, guys. Hopefully you
Prateek,
had.
sir?
Yeah, yes, Sriram.
Yeah, sir. Is it same R and Python or a different tool, sir? It is
R and Python are different. R and Python are different tools, but both are primarily used these days in in creating machine learning algorithms or for predictive modeling, predictive analysis. But Python is also used for more than predictive analysis, for web development also, but R is not so much used for that. But yeah, I mean, Python is becoming significantly popular, Srirama. But again, as I always tell my learners, that instead of focusing too much on the tools, first focus on, let's say, for example, machine learning concepts. Focus on learning machine learning concepts. Focus on your fundamental concepts. If the data science is the route that you are taking, then focus on statistical algorithms as well. Focus on SQL, data manipulation. Because these are the first and the foremost thing that you would be asked in any interview. As a recruiter, I want to first see if your fundamentals are clear. Rest of the things you can actually learn. But yeah, in terms of learning sequence, I would say, if data science is the goal, focus on SQL. Pick up one of the visualization tool, for example, Power BI or Tableau, become extremely good at it. Focus on learning statistical algorithms, then work on Python or R.
Sir?
Yeah, Riddhima.
Sir, I have a question about computer vision. So to be an data analyst, is it worth to learn about computer vision?
Well, I mean, computer vision is a very niche area within the world of data science, right? It's a very niche area, but it's also a very complex area. But with all the packages, softwares, plugins available, it has become simpler. But it's a very, very niche area, Riddhima. You have to have a very, very strong reason if you just want to focus on computer vision. But I mean, we have had, like one of my, I remember one of our learners was finally recruited by Walmart, Walmart Labs, to do research on reducing theft from Walmart stores by creating algorithm to analyze the video feeds on real-time basis. That's where computer vision was used extensively. But again, as I said, Rizman, this is a very specialized area. There are a lot of pre-steps to reach that level, Rizman. But it is part of the data world, if that was a question.
Sir, where I can get syllabus, sir? Like what are all the course you offering, and what are all the offers?
On the website, definitely is there, Shrama. Otherwise, you can definitely reach out.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. So as sir has told earlier also, we are providing some good offers on our courses. So anyone who is interested in understanding the good offers, please fill the form and we'll be definitely contacting you back for more details.
Sonia?
Just a small question, ma'am. Like in this offer and all, if we enroll in it, do we get the same environment of classes wherein we can like talk to the?
Yes, definitely. This is like a same class, and the faculty is also the Prateek sir for SQL. For more details, definitely will contact you back. Please
I
fill
have
the
filled
form.
the form. I have done it.
Great.
Same thing, guys. I mean, maybe today, of course, we skipped a few steps. We did not have time to make you share the screen. In my regular classes, and those lot of regular classes are uploaded on our YouTube channel as well. We take things slowly a little bit. I'm going to ask you to share your screen. I'm logging onto your screen as well if you get stuck somewhere. It's actually significantly more interactive that way.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. These 2 days class are very insightful, sir. We'll come back.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night. Take care, everybody. Happy learning. Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.